third grade. This is Mr. Roney coming at you with a social studies lesson on government. We've learned a lot about government in the last few weeks, and what the next few days are going to look like is we're going to answer a question, and that question is, does it matter how our government leaders are chosen? And the way this is going to work is that we're going to study some resources together about how government works, and then you're going to take that information and form an opinion. Do you think it matters how government leaders are chosen? And today we're going to study the question of who rules in different types of government around the world. So in order to study that, we're going to use this chessboard as a model.
Let's pretend our chessboard is a country and ask the question, who are the leaders and who are the people? Wait, we're missing something. Much better. We needed some people for our country.
Someone's got to be in charge. If you compared all the governments in the world, you would find one thing in common. Someone is in charge. The question is, who? There are many different forms of government. Some have one leader who has all the control. Others give power to the people. Here are some forms of government that exist or have existed in the world. First, we're going to study some systems where only one person is in charge of the whole government in a country. Me, myself, and I. An autocracy is a government in which one person has all the power. There are two main types of autocracy: a monarchy and a dictatorship. In a monarchy, a king or queen rules the country. The king or queen is known as a monarch. Monarchs usually come to power through their family line, and the current king or queen's oldest child becomes the next king or queen. In some monarchies, especially those in historical times, the monarchy held all the power and had the final say over the government. In modern times, monarchs usually share power with the other parts of government. Often they are subject to the country's constitution. A dictatorship is a form of government where one leader has absolute control over citizens' lives. If there is a constitution, the dictator has control over that too. So it doesn't mean much. Although other parts of government may exist, such as courts or a lawmaking body, these branches always do what the dictator wants them to do. They do not represent citizens.
So in a very, very small country, this is basically what a dictatorship or a monarchy would look like. This piece here is actually called the queen. So the queen in this system would be the leader, while all of the other pieces would be people.
Now we're going to study a few systems where mostly everyone is in charge in a country's government. Power to the people. In a democracy, citizens hold the political power. And there are two basic types of democracies. And this should be reviewed from what we've done over the last few weeks. In a representative democracy, citizens elect leaders to represent their rights and interests in government. The elected leaders, or representatives, do the day-to-day work of governing the country. They consider the issues, work to find solutions, pass laws, and do all of the other things necessary to keep a country going. Citizens hold the ultimate power, though, because if they don't like what their representatives are doing, they can vote in new ones. In a direct democracy, there are no representatives. Citizens are directly involved in the day-to-day work of governing the country. Citizens might be required to participate in lawmaking or act as judges, for example. The best example of this was in the ancient Greek city-state called Athens. Most modern countries are too large for a direct democracy to work.
If we were to look at it visually, this is what a democracy would look like, where the leaders and the people are basically the same thing, and all the people have a say in how the government works. both in representative and direct democracy, this is basically what the picture would look like. Now for a type of government called oligarchy, where only a few people are in charge.
We, ourselves, and us. In an oligarchy, and that's spelled a little funny, but there it is right there, oligarchy. A small group of people has the power. Oligarchy is a Greek word that means rule by few. Sometimes this means that only a certain group has political rights, such as members of one political party, one social class, or one race. For example, in some societies, only noble families who owned land could participate in politics. An oligarchy can also mean that a few people control the country. For example, a junta is a small group of people, usually military officers, who rule a country after taking it over by force. A junta often operates much like a dictatorship, except that several people share power. And here's a picture over here from someone in the Thai government. Prayut Chan-o-cha is Thailand's prime minister and the head of the military junta that took over the country in 2014.
And here is what an oligarchy would look like, with only a few people who are leaders and the rest who are ruled by those leaders. So, say the military in our small country took over. The military would be represented by the 2 knights and our bishop. Everyone else would be ruled by that military and wouldn't have any say in how their government worked.
Religious rule. A theocracy is a government that recognizes God or a divine being as the ultimate authority. Theo is a Greek word that means God. In a theocracy, religious law is used to settle disputes and rule the people. A theocracy can also be a democracy, dictatorship, monarchy, or just about any other kind of government. For example, the Republic of Iran recognizes Islamic law, but Iran's citizens vote to elect their leaders. Modern theocracies are usually found in countries where the population is strongly religious. And here's a picture, and it says, Supreme Leader Ali Hosseini Khamenei is Iran's chief of state and holds many powerful functions in government.
Finally, a system called anarchy, where no one is actually in charge. Is that even possible?
Rule by none. In an anarchy, nobody is in control. Or everyone is, depending on how you look at it. Sometimes the word anarchy is used to refer to an out-of-control mob. When it comes to government, anarchy would be one way to describe the human state of existence before any governments were developed. It would be similar to the way animals live in the world, with everyone looking out for themselves. Today, people who call themselves anarchists usually believe that people should be allowed to freely associate together without being subject to any nation or government. There are no countries that have anarchy as their form of government. And here's another picture, and the caption says, an A inside of a circle is the traditional symbol for anarchy.
Now our country looks kind of crazy. This would be a good representation of what anarchy might look like, where no one is actually in charge, and there's not much of a government at all. Actually, since there are no leaders, I should probably take this label off. Much better. So let's review one more time what we learned today. There are many types of government across the world. A few types of government where only one person in charge would be a monarchy or a dictatorship. Other forms of government where everyone is in charge usually are types of democracy. There are 2 types of democracy: direct democracy, where everyone participates directly in making laws and making decisions, and representative democracy, where people send people to represent them in government, but don't vote or participate on things themselves. Finally, we have oligarchies, where only a few very privileged people get to participate in government and where most other people don't get a say. Check out the quiz in Google Classroom. I think you have all the information to do it. I want to see what you know. And tomorrow, meet me here for another social studies class where we're going to keep looking at the question, does it matter how our leaders in government are elected?